Bases dropped on Soccer's morning show. It's Tuesday Thoughts. John here, you there. I know what you're thinking. So go ahead and dial them up. All we got's time and space. So this morning, just go ahead. I'm gonna get. We got opening kickoff, obviously, to get you warmed up and get you into the Twitch pitch. But whatever's on your mind. I know that we had some news that happened yesterday once the show got off the air, and time to talk about it. So seriously, what I always like to do with Reaction Mondays, we'll apply it to today. Whatever's on your mind, go ahead and say your piece. But I reserve the right to run a PSA within the show to remind us all about the greater picture. Gonzalo Pineda relieved of duties yesterday as head coach of Atlanta United. Rob Valentino will be in charge for the foreseeable future. And we will go from there. But like I said, whatever your thoughts are, today is almost like a Reaction Monday Part 2. Since the news broke yesterday on a Reaction Monday, I guess this turns into a Reaction Tuesday. So whatever's on your mind, lay it out there. We'll have the conversation in the Twitch pitch. We'll have the conversation about whatever thoughts you have. And now we go forward. Obviously, I do have a couple of questions that are attached to the announcement yesterday. And if they come up in conversation, they come up in conversation. And if they don't, then over the course of the rest of the season, then we will continue to bring those questions up. But once again, Gonzalo Pineda relieved of duties yesterday, the longest tenured coach in Atlanta United history. And now it is the 16 matches left in the season? 16 points in 16 games. 18 matches left in the season, plus Open Cup. So like I said, whatever's on your mind involving what happened yesterday, lay it out there. That's what today is for. Rest of the week to lay things out, Tyler Pilgrim, our buddies at Scarves and Spikes, and they had their show last night. We'll give Tyler the chance to catch his breath. Tyler will be on tomorrow morning at 9:15. We'll see if the busiest man in the Northeast can drop by, Dylan Butler, tomorrow at 10. Nico will join us at 10:30 on Thursday. He and his friends at Soccer Bar discussed Gonzalo Pineda. And they thought that, and Nico specifically thought, that for Gonzalo, it's an opportunity to have, with his time in Atlanta, gained valuable experience and to apply it forward for wherever his next opportunities are. Is he almost the coach in waiting that we saw in college football? Is he the coach in waiting in Seattle for Brian Schmetzer? So that would be one of my questions for Nico come Thursday. Does Gonzalo Pineda end up going home? And I'll put that in quotes. Friday, big stuff going on in the WPSL. Decatur FC is going to join us at 9:05. Big matchup on Friday night, early activity in the WPSL with Georgia Impact and Decatur FC at Decatur. Remember last time out, Decatur had 1,800 folks show up for their first ever match in franchise history. So that'll be the week when it comes to guests. Anybody else that wants to crash a party, they most certainly can. Obviously, we'll have our episodic programming as we go this week, but it is now the beginning of a new time for Atlanta United. Gonzalo Pineda gone. Rob Valentino is the man in charge for the foreseeable future. Interim manager, once again promoted to interim 4-2-2 back in 2021 after Gabriel Heinze was dismissed. Garth said, quote, as a pragmatic manner, the thing you can change in the middle of the season is coach in terms of trying to affect different outcome from the same group of players. Obviously, we'll continue to evaluate our entire sporting operation. If you get a new guy in training every day, a new guy in the locker room every day, again, without any fault, it's ours. That new voice, that new approach that may elicit a different response. So we'll get into that. So go ahead and line up your thoughts as we go, and we'll talk about it this morning. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code as I cover up the other QR code. That's your QR code from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. When you click on that QR code and go to Kickoff Coffee, when you check out, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10% and reinvest it into youth games, youth initiative stuff that they have earmarked. Just ask our friend Melissa Ortiz, friend of the network. And you can use that code SoccerDownHere15. They take 10% reinvested into youth games, stuff that they've earmarked is cool. Our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. I don't know if you've been looking at what's been going on with Charlotte and Marco Royce. It has not been great. Remember the conversation that we had, I want to say a week or so ago about dibs? And that's basically discovery rights in Major League Soccer. With Marco Royce, you look at a lot of our tier one sources that we reference in the business. And right now, the tier one sources are saying that Marco Royce has agreed to personal terms for an 18-month gig out at LAG, possibly adding another year behind it. And the personal terms are great, but the hook is that the dibs on Marco Royce are in Charlotte. From all indications, Marco Royce has no desire to play in Charlotte. Sorry, Charlotte. So now the idea is that when you have dibs, you got to come up with a fee. You've got to come up with something that'll sit there and go, well, you want him. We like him. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. How'd you do? How'd you do? We think we can sign him to a contract. So for us to have dibs, you need to pay us so we can transfer the discovery rights, which are a silly concept anyway. So Charlotte's got dibs on Marco Royce, and you get to agree to a price with a club that wants to sign him, CLAG. And it appears, according to some folks, and these might be tier 2 sources, so once again, follow your sourcing in this, that Marco Royce has been offered a deal that is $4 million plus to sign him. We've got dibs on you. Please stay. Here's $4 million plus on a contract. But there is a conversation that is out there from Cesar Luis Merlo that Galaxy have offered Marco Royce as much money as Charlotte, but it's also going to be made up in sponsorship deals and opportunities since LAG do not have a DP slot available. Right now, the way things are with LAG, just so we're now all on the same page, DPs, Paintsel, Puig, Peck is a young DP. LAG's U22 players include Dejan Joveljic and Julian Audek. So there's no space for Marco Royce. But they could probably high-tam him to death, sign him to a deal, and then come up with sponsor dollars, like maybe In-N-Out Burger or something like that. In-N-Out Burger, Marie Callender's, Conoco or Arco, something like that to lock in Marco Royce to get him to Los Angeles, a market where Marco Royce would be on par and down the freeway from one of the handsomest men in Major League Soccer to be in Olivier Giroud. It'll be a battle inside Los Angeles for most handsomest man because you've got Hugo Lloris, you've got Olivier Giroud, and you could have Marco Royce if you settle on your dibs fee. And it looks like the dibs fee is in the neighborhood of $350,000. Highest dibs fee ever paid is $500,000. For LAG, paying that dibs fee is not that big a deal. but they have to be imaginative in bringing in a player like Marco Royce, apparently, with sponsor deals and things like that, since they can't pay him, DP money, or they can't have him as a DP, and they can sit there and say, well, tell you what, as we've looked at in the past with like LAFC, you wonder how the Lloris and Giroux deals are coming to pass. Are they sponsor deals? Is this NIL? Same with the folks in Miami, because we had discussed last season the salary figures that were attached to folks, and they ended up being a little different than it would be normally. So once again, like I said, something to keep an eye on here. How do you, if you are LAG, get a deal put together, max TAM, with gifts and presents and pretty much anything that you could sit there and go, hey, here's a sponsorship deal. Hey, you want to be attached to, say, Cal Worthington's Ford? And as someone who was born out there, that is an antiquated reference. It no longer applies, I don't think. You want to get Cal Worthington Ford to sponsor you, and you get to cut a commercial with his dog Spot, which could be a tiger or a bear or anything like that. That was also part of the hook of those commercials in those days, and I'm sure they're on YouTube. So Marco Royce doesn't want to be in Charlotte. Charlotte could pay him the money. He doesn't want to be there. Dibs fee $350,000. Sounds like the number that was allegedly agreed to. But LAG can only have him as a max TAM, so it would have to be TAM plus something else. And that's something else we think we've seen in other markets. We know we've seen it with Lionel Messi. So now Marco Royce could be along that same vein, but we'll see. With all of this stuff that is going on, it makes you wonder how many other teams are sitting here and staring at all of this NIL activity and going, yeah, man, we need to do that. Because one of the things that we have always talked about on this show is the salary cap and the lack of information therein involving Major League Soccer. Where are you up against it? Miami up against it. Sells DeAndre Yedlin for the weirdest AM figure I've ever seen, which means that they were right up against something. But what that something is, we don't know. The Athletic, what was it, about a month ago, actually did come out with the listing of where players are when it comes to their designations and such. That's cool to know that. But it would also be great to know for the growth of the league where folks stand. Like I said, you can go to NHLnumbers.com or whatever the website is now, and you can find out what the numbers are for National Hockey League teams as they go right up against the cap or over the cap. You can see who's on long-term injury reserve, and that money is dead money. It doesn't go up against, it doesn't count against the cap figure currently in the National Hockey League. That's what Major League Soccer needs. So we all can be a more informed group of fans / journalists that cover the league every day. Instead, we're left with stuff like this from, B-level sourcing, where it's dibs and possibly sponsorships, but we don't know because we don't have the salary cap information in front of us. That is sorely missing when it comes to the coverage of this league and the appreciation of this league and the fandom of this league, to figure out, okay, if my team is here, here's how much space they have to play with. Here's the AM that they have to play with. Here's how much they've got on file. The Marco Royce situation once again reinforces, A, teams are getting real imaginative and dancing around the salary cap. B, we'd all love to know what the salary cap is so we can figure out just how imaginative my favorite team could be. And I put that in the collective. If my favorite team is Minnesota, and I can sit there and figure out, okay, Khaled Al-Ahmad has X amount of dollars to play with, that's great. But at least now I have a baseline where I can sit there and go, okay, that's the cap. Maybe Target could sponsor Timu Pukki. Then we can dance around the salary cap. We've seen it with Messi and friends. We've seen it with Messi specifically. It appears that LAG would have to do the same thing to bring in Marco Royce. We have seen no objections from anything posted on social media, but from Marco Royce. Yeah, get me that Cal Worthington Ford and an LAX sponsorship and, insert Western airline here, like or Herbalife. Herbalife drops, $7 gazillion in Marco Royce's lap as a part of the deal. So he's no longer dibs in Charlotte. Charlotte, bruh, I appreciate you with the $4 million plus, but I'm not interested in being in Charlotte. And this is something that teams will have to fight against. In our production chat yesterday, Nick was mentioning that for most European players, it's LA, it's New York, it's Chicago, and maybe Messi and friends. South American players and other growing markets, you probably could spin in other directions, as evidenced by what Atlanta United is doing in recruiting players. South America and the distressed assets are where Atlanta United is going. But the Marco Royce situation right now, once again, to recap for opening kickoff. Charlotte has dibs on Marco Royce. Marco Royce is not interested in Charlotte. Charlotte's saying, hey, what about $4 million plus a year in DP status? LAG can fork over the $350,000 that seems to be the number that's agreed to. Marco Royce wants to go to Los Angeles. Personal terms have been agreed to for the year and a half and possibly an option for another. But he can't be a DP because of the salary cap that we don't know what it is. So LAG is getting imaginative. They are the third club that we can think of that is getting imaginative. Technically the second, we can assume three. LAFC, LAG, and Messi and friends, to make sure this Marco Royce deal happens. You're using NIL to get around a salary cap. No surprise. Good on you for being the first ones through the door to figure that out. But we'll see where this goes involving Marco Royce. LAG is offering Royce as much money, made up in deals and opportunities, according to Cesar Luis Merlo. So that is where Marco Royce in the situation is. Once again, remember, he can't come in for another couple of weeks. But right now, that's where things stand. Another team is getting imaginative. It's when you're involved with NIL. I'd love to know how imaginative we all could be with NIL and or sponsor dollars. But once again, we don't know what the cap is. We don't know what the top is. We don't know what the basement is. And I think that's doing the league a disservice. That's opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code. Trying to protect the second QR code that's traditionally over my shoulder. Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch, on the 280-character app, and on the SDH YouTube's channel. Thanks for doing so on a daily basis, by the way. And don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested in youth games, youth initiatives, stuff that Melissa Ortiz et al. Have regarded as cool. Right there. Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And you can use that QR code to help them out. Helps you out. 15% off. Helps them out. Taking 10% and reinvesting it in the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. As I sit here and wave it in front of the other Alliance Nurse Corps QR codes so people don't get confused and hit two QR codes at once. There's your housekeeping. That is the Marshall Islands scarf, the scarf that helps benefit the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, the last nation on the planet starting a national soccer program. 32 plus 5 if you want it shipped, 32 if you just want to see Abby, if you just want to see me, or if we see each other in person somewhere. But once again, helps out the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. And we'll continue to tell their story. We are chasing down their first ever women's national team coach for a 1v1. Hopefully we can catch that up in short order. And once again, DM me, DM the show, email me, email the show, text me if you got my cell phone number. I don't give it out regularly, but there are some of you that may have it. And or reach out in the Discord. So 32 plus 5 if you want it shipped. Marshall Island Soccer Federation scarf. That is there, and that is also a part of what we do here at SDH. Once again, that's our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps, and Alliance Nurse Corps, proud sponsors of everything here as well. All right. Tried to give you opening kickoff to sit here and let you guys get your thoughts in. So time to rock and roll. First off, morning Dell, morning Tom, morning Will, morning Abby, morning Alex. Let's see, morning Tommy. Let's see, morning Will. I'm trying to see if morning Emilio, morning Tafka, morning Four Card, and morning Uncle. Uncle watching from Oregon, by the way, which is always very humbling when like Andy King dials us up from Oregon, or from Southern California, and when Unc dials us up from Oregon. Very, very cool. All right. So once again, yeah, Dell, any news? Yeah, exactly. Morning, everybody. No, Dell, I mean, and this is part and parcel to the discussion, just in an overarching sense. I know that there is going to be a time where, and it might start this morning, where you've got names in mind to be the new head coach for Atlanta United. And I know that sometimes it is, it's you're just throwing names out there to throw names out there. There were names thrown out yesterday by folks in the national media where you just sit there and you go, really? It's not funny and it's not serious, yet you use your platform to do that. Comment reserved after the period in that sentence. So when I ask the question, what are you looking for in a head coach? Understand that right now Rob Valentino is the interim. And he is going to be given every opportunity, as Garth Lagerwey said yesterday, to, for lack of a better word, audition for the gig. Now, once again, remember that we said that Rob was 4-2-2 in 2021. But Mike Conti pointed out yesterday on social media, some of that stuff was against Wooden Spoon, and it was against competition that you should beat. It was against substandard competition. So we look at the schedule for Atlanta United going forward, and it starts with the matchup with Houston coming up in, was it 12 days, 11 days? So you got 11 days to get ready for Houston Dynamo. Then you are in a situation where you have 4 matches in 2 weeks. Midweek weekend. And then you've got a week before Toronto. And then you've got another schedule compression of 4 matches in 10, 5 matches in 2 weeks, 6 matches in 17 days, and that gets you into just shy of Leagues Cup. So Rob's going to have a lot of chances. Houston on the 15th here at Mercedes-Benz. And I would ask that you give the team and Rob continued support and be there for them 120% of the time because of what has happened. So on the 15th, Houston to Mercedes-Benz. Then they go to Audi Field to take on DC. Then they go to City Park to take on St. Louis. Take on All Caps on the 22nd. Then on the 29th, Toronto visits. July 3rd, they go to Gillette. They're probably staying on the road, by the way, because might be counterintuitive to fly to New England, fly home, and then fly out to RSL. You're probably chartering this group. July 3rd, New England at Gillette. Then 3 days later, July 6th, you go to RSL. Then you come home for Open Cup on the 9th, up at the Fraction to take on Indy 11 to get you into the final 8. And then Montreal at Stade Saputo. Then you come home to take on NYC on the 17th of July at Mercedes-Benz. Then you host Columbus on the 20th. Then you host DC on the 26th, and then you're into Leagues Cup on April 4th. August 4th. April 4th. Good Lord. August 4th. So that's where we are. So that's what you're looking at schedule wise for Rob and for Atlanta United going forward. Garth said yesterday that Rob's voice may resonate differently than Gonzalo, Diego de la Torre, and the rest of the assistants on the staff, Eugenio Villason, etc. Quote, whether it was reality or perception, I think there was a perception that the other assistants were in the boat with Gonzalo. Certainly Rob was supportive and part of that team, but we're going to continue now with Rob, who maybe will have a little bit different viewpoint on some things. So, and to remind everybody about the success of interim coaches, Rob, if Rob proves he's deserving of that, certainly that would be a great thing for us. Sunday's match against Charlotte, 9th in 30 days, by the way. Now, once again, to recap where players are in this process. Saba, Bart, Caleb Wiley, Noah Cobb, Jay Fortune, Luis Abram. You've got national team duty. Saba and Bart gone for the Euros. Thiago was named to the U23 side for Argentina a couple days ago. So Thiago's probably captaining Argentina for the Olympics. Luis Abram for the Copa America. Caleb gone for the Olympics. So it's going to be a challenge for Rob when it comes to figuring out who goes where lineup-wise. But Rob's going to be given every opportunity to win the gig full-time. Abby got the letter. Glad that Garth sent the 17s a letter. And so it was a letter that went to, and I got to see it as well. And the point that was made by Garth in that letter. Dear 17s, as a valued member of Atlanta United, wanted to personally inform you of the change in leadership. And he mentions the parting of the ways with Gonzalo, Diego, and Eugenio. First and foremost, grateful for Gonzalo's hard work, positive attitude he brought to the club each day alongside Diego and Eugenio. Each of them was consistently ingrained into our community and were exemplary ambassadors for our club throughout their time in Atlanta. As a club, we set expectations to deliver a championship club to you this season and every season. To this point, those expectations have not been met. It is my responsibility to move our club in a positive direction to match these expectations. I feel the timing of this decision gives us the best opportunity to still achieve our goals this season as the best fan base in MLS. The energy and passion you fill Mercedes-Benz Stadium with each week is deserving of a high-quality product on the field. I have full confidence that our group will emerge from this moment stronger and return to the field refocused for the rest of the 2024 season. The global search for the next head coach of the club begins immediately. So that was the letter that Garth sent to the 17s. Dell finally did figure out that it's scarves and spikes. Well, no, I did. I did say "and" because if you go and scarves and spikes on Twitter, Dell, it is scarves and spikes, I guess because of characters or something like that. Tommy mentioning the comments about Boca being odd. It's, Garth said that he is spearheading the committee. I am not one to sit there and jump to a conclusion. I know that there are some that will go, okay, well, it's what he didn't say as opposed to what he said. We don't know what the committee is going to look like. We can assume what the committee is going to look like. You would assume that you would have as many voices in that process as possible. But Garth said he's the point of the spear. And that recommendation will go to Arthur from this committee that Garth is at the point of. So Garth is like, hey, all right, I'm the guy that's in charge of this committee. We will have this committee together, and we will figure it out. And we can assume who is on the committee, but once again, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, look, the committee could have 98 people on it, although having 98 voices would be a little convoluted. It's probably a very small group of folks. But I don't think you want to sit there and say every person who's on the committee, because then you're hounding those individuals. I mean, seriously, if I was on that committee, I don't know if I would necessarily want my name announced, because I need to focus on business instead of, everything else that's surrounding it. I know that Garth was asked twice about it, and Garth mentioned that he's the point of the spear. So whoever's on that committee, you got a job to do. It is a worldwide search. Focus on the job. Will said that's his favorite part of the pressers. That Garth said he's leading the search and he'll be deliberate and thorough. Tom, only issue with the situation and timing is that in order to actually give Rob a fair shot, you might put yourself out of the market for guys that are available now with most of the world in the offseason. Well, I mean, if you were to look at folks, I mean, and it is an audition for Rob on multiple fronts. If Rob wins the gig here, great. If they go unbeaten and Rob is proven to have won the gig, then he wins the gig. That with this group of players, and I know that there's news about that we need to talk about, Rob gets the chance. And then the decision by this committee becomes, if the interim does so well or does well enough, do you put your faith and trust in him as someone who knows the organization, knows everything that goes on, knows the day-to-day? He's already ingrained. He understands the DNA of what he walks into every single day at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground. You don't have to worry about the adjustment time of an individual coming into the situation new. You've already hit the ground running if the interim, and in this case, Rob, gets you to what you were chasing after with this group of folks. Knowing full well that the summer window could be just as nuts. Because yesterday, once again, Tier 1 sourcing, Fabrizio Romano, I believe, was the Tier 1 source yesterday that had the had the update or the latest news on Yorgi Shakamakis. And let me get to the wording of it yesterday, because getting through Xavi Simons and Jadon Sancho and Ian Matson, Daichi Kamada and Crystal Palace. See, that's where all of this is. When Fabrizio Romano is talking about you, that is A+ Tier 1 sourcing. Early this morning, Romano about Marco Royce said, extremely confident to make it happen. Work in progress. Newcastle and Lloyd Kelly and Bournemouth. But yeah, when you're getting into those same kinds of conversations involving players on your roster, then that's some Tier 1 stuff. Basically, 2:30 yesterday afternoon was the latest update. And Fabrizio Romano had this at 2:30 yesterday afternoon. Cruz Azul agreed on personal terms with Gigi, now close to completing a deal with Atlanta United. After the $10 million bid was revealed last week, negotiating on the installments considered final details, Romano referred to it as getting closer. So that was what Fabrizio Romano said yesterday about Yorgi Shakamakis. But, Tom, it comes down to personal choice. Does that committee feel at the end of it all, at the end of the discussion, and it's not just a one-way, it's not just a one-lane street here. You're not just going in, you're not just trying to dodge traffic. you're not going to stop talking to other individuals at the same time that you're giving Rob a chance. You're always going to be gauging interest. You're gauging interest with players all the time. I would imagine that you're gauging interest with individuals all the time. Hey, you think you'd like to come down here and be a part of something? They're going to give Rob the chance. They're going to give Rob the benefit of the doubt. And if Rob wins his way into the gig, then that's something to consider, that you've found somebody, once again, who's hit the ground running and knows the DNA, knows the group, and is locked in. All of that orientation you don't have to worry about. Alex, when Garth said there's no timetable, read that as the club being willing to give managers in Europe through the summer to see who falls before the European season starts. I would agree. I know Paulo Fonseca has turned into a running envelope that we open in this situation, but it looks like he's going to be getting another gig in Serie A. But to that point, yes. When global search means global search, you've got leagues that are done. You've got silly season with managers sorting itself out. Just look at what we talked about with Jose Mourinho yesterday, and no, that is not a serious name to mention. But yeah, the silly season in Europe, you let it sort out. You figure out who's going where, who's dropping into those positions, and getting ready, say, over the next month. Maybe you have a better idea through the Olympics or something. So that's what you're staring at. Apparently, Apple TV's got a documentary about Royce at the Euros. Okay. And then Todd, once again, search you're conducted, you could lose out on guys. Yeah, I don't think, if there is in the worldwide search, in the global search, if you hit your guy, then you've hit your guy. Yeah, you're dude comes in, Tom, you're interviewed, you go in and you hit a home run. You hit all the right notes, you're ready to go. You hit the philosophy right, you understand the community commitment, you understand the media commitment, you hit all of those markers, then it might be the decision. And Emilio, to your point, you're not really training a manager. You feel that when you bring in a top assistant, that they are ready to make that jump. It's not training a manager per se. They've been trained as the top assistant at their gig before. So it's not just you're not training a manager. You feel that that assistant is ready to be a manager. And like I said, when Nico comes in on Thursday, we'll go over the point that Nico made, where this is valuable experience for Gonzalo Pineda going forward for that next opportunity that he gets on this continent. If it's in Liga MX, if it's in Major League Soccer, if he ends up being the heir apparent to Brian Schmetzer in Seattle. Morning, Rich. Yes, Rich has the popcorn ready. Absolutely. Tafka, Pineda rightfully let go, lost all patience with Major League Soccer. You claim to want to be a best 10 or 5 or whatever league in the world for a decade. Practically no changes have come that actually move the league toward that goal. Morning 4 card. Let's see. And Emilio going back and forth with a lot of folks. And Gio, Tom says he gravitates toward Gio Savarese because of his league experience. And once again, the question is, from Tom and others, can Gio work with this roster? I don't see why he couldn't. But Gio has been a name that has, hey, Gio's doing TV right now in New York City. Knows what it means to win in this league. We have thought on this network that Gio Savarese, we wanted from his time to remember Gio Savarese. We thought he could be like the first manager for Atlanta United out of the blocks, because we talked about it here on the show. Jason, Jarrett, Nick, myself, we all talked about Gio. And one of the things that always sticks with me about Gio is the kind of guy that he is. When the North American Soccer League was whatever you want to call it, flaming out with the heat of 1,000 suns and a supernova to be named later. Gio wins a title with the Cosmos, knows the league is dying, and is trying to find gigs for his players. He's up nights trying to get ready for matches, and at the same time, he's trying to figure out how he can keep his guys employed and get them to their next gig. That's the kind of guy Gio is. So having someone invested in your club with Gio Savarese, that box got checked 8 years ago before he went to Portland. So I'm sure that Gio will be a part of the discussion. And so Dell's coming up. Dell wants to come up with a list of possible coaches. That's fine. But I would ask to be realistic about it. As I mentioned, what was happening in the national media yesterday for yucks and clicks. I'm just glad that I have figured out how to restrain myself on the 280 character app sometimes. You can come up with names all you want. And I'm sure that we will do that, especially when the rumor mill comes through and you try and plug names in and things like that. Coming up with names is fine. Right now the name is Rob Valentino. But if you want to come up with a list of folks to consider with the parameters that Garth has put out there for understanding what it means to be the head coach at Atlanta United, let's be realistic about it. Don't drop just recently retired coaches from the European theater out there just for yucks and clicks, okay? That's what I would ask. Let's be serious about it. And then when you put a name out there, I would ask that you tell me why. What makes this individual the one that you have put out there to be the new head coach for Atlanta United if Rob does not work out? Let me know why. Let me know who, let me know why. Make your case. I want you to state your case. Almost like we are in, it's like an episode of like The Practice or LA Law or something, or Perry Mason, or pick your legal TV show, Suits. Give me a name, tell me why. But be serious about it. Don't just sit there and say, "Yeah, we'll get Pep. Yeah, we'll get Klopp. We'll get Pep. We'll get we'll get Diego Simeone. We'll get Ancelotti." No, let's be serious. One of the things that I've always prided us on here is that we try to sort things out and do it journalistically. So have a good head on our shoulders when we do this, okay? Give me names, tell me why. With the current context of what's going on with Atlanta United, give me names, tell me why. Not like Sir Alex or something like that. But yeah, there were just some stuff out there yesterday that I was like, really? Clickbait. So your assignment, please, going forward, give me a name, tell me why. Don't just give me a name. Let me know what's on your mind about the position if at the end of the discussion and the end of this season it does not go to Rob Valentino. Hydration. Alex is mentioning Thierry Henry, but would Thierry want to come back and coach? The reason that Thierry left is that Thierry left Montreal. He was confident in Wilfried Nancy. Thierry wanted to go back to Europe. Family separation, the whole schmear. And he left it for Wilfried Nancy. And Wilfried Nancy would be an example that I would use about why it's okay to elevate a top assistant into a head coaching position. Gonzalo Pineda, at the time that he was hired, was one of the most highly sought-after assistants to become a head coach in Major League Soccer. Thierry Henry had enough confidence in Montreal to leave the keys with Wilfred Nancy. Wilfred Nancy, with a good head on his shoulders, had had enough of Joey Saputo's ish, went to Columbus, and you've seen what's happened there. So when the on-the-job training is mentioned, that is when you are learning as a number one assistant, and a front office feels that you are ready to take that jump. Montreal is kind of pinned into place because Thierry Henry was leaving, but Thierry Henry had enough confidence in bringing Wilfred Nancy forward. Oh, how long has Rob been with Atlanta? It's been a while. Okay, so I sit here and I do I hit the buttons looking for his 2018, to answer your question. 2018. And primarily as an assistant with the first team since 2019. Key role in player development. Joined January 23rd, 2018 as an assistant coach for the Twos inaugural season before being promoted to assistant coach with the first team prior to 2019. So he had his first time with the Twos starting in 2018 before he went to the first team in 2019. Before that, he was an assistant at OCB from August of 2015. Well, and Tom, and this Marcelo Bielsa, and this is the other element in this, is that if you are bringing in a coach, they would have to be in line philosophically with what Atlanta United has been doing, and that's what the personnel that you have. Because if you bring in a coach that is counter to the personnel, then you're going to have a train wreck of matter and antimatter, and it's going to collide. I don't know if Marcelo Bielsa right now, I believe, is at the point of his career where he's cool doing national team stuff because of the timelines, and then you're not losing weight, you're not having to do all the PowerPoints all the time. I think that Bielsa, you might have gone past the point of a Bielsa tactically. And so someone in that Bielsa tree, or in that Bielsa vein, you might have gone past that tactically. But Bielsa himself, I think, is happy being a national team coach. Alex, a conspiracy theory that Rob joined from OCB and has worked to destroy and destabilize from within. Let's see. So, yeah, we'll tend to think the search began a week or two ago. And that's the thing, is that just because you have an interim coach named, and this is the same with players too. We got into the discussion about Gigi and Cruz Azul. Garth did acknowledge that there were discussions. And so the second somebody knocks on your door, you're looking to figure out, okay, where can we go and who can we bring in and all that kind of stuff. This is not an end and then a beginning. It is truly an overlapping scenario where if your front office is worth their salt, then the second you're trying to think of something, either very good, very bad, substitution, what have you, that's when you're thinking about the next stages. It is not something where, oh, we've lost a player, let's go get another player. No, it is something where someone is gauging interest, and then, okay, so now what do we need to do to fill that space? And it's a simultaneous action. It's not, oh, we've lost him, oh, let's get somebody. Oh, we've dismissed a coach, oh, let's get somebody. No, if the traction is going in the wrong in a direction, then like when we talked about, when you're hydroplaning, you steer into the skid, you don't steer against the skid. So if you steer into the skid, then you've been thinking about this for however long you've been thinking about it. So for me, It is not. It is not. And one act ends, another act begins. It is. There is some simultaneous action, whether it's players, coaches, or what have you. So let's see, some roster talk. Alex, read on Boca seemed like Garth was saying the technical staff has spent the last 2 or 3 windows righting wrongs. And that goes back to the point where Garth said when he came in, short-term pain for a long-term gain because there were players and cap issues. But once again, we don't know specifically. You were right up against the cap. I think that was said publicly. And so in having players being picked up in South America or wherever, you've helped alleviate that cap problem. So then Alex says, therefore, if the team is good but underperforming, then the coach changes what's needed. If we don't make progress, even with an interim, then the squad isn't underperforming. They just aren't as good as expected, and the technical staff needs to change. Let's see. There's Unk, there's Tafka, and like I said, I'm glad that there's a lot of conversation amongst all of you this morning as a part of this as well. I like that there's that it's not just me and quotes and driving the conversation. I'm glad that you guys are having the conversation that you always have when it comes to this, when it comes to activity in the Twitch pitch. It's really cool for me. Really cool for me to be able to have the news come forward, but then at the same time have the discussion that you guys are having with one another. I've always thought that was a really cool dynamic that we have here, that you guys have engagement with one another. And so for me, I've always thought that was really cool. Alex is looking at Arena. Is Bruce still radioactive? Once again, remember, we still don't know what happened in New England. We still don't know. We still don't. And at the same time, we could be one step closer to, if Caleb Porter is dismissed, Richie Williams being the survivor of all of this and becoming probably the interim head coach of the New England Revolution. I'm sure that Shooter has his head buried in a pillow and his ears are ringing. But we still don't know what's up, what happened with Bruce Arena in New England. And can you go there if it has never been made public? Is he still radioactive? I would think so. Not disputing what he's been able to do on the field, but we still don't know what happened. I don't think you can go there. Henry would have to want to come back. I think that right now Thierry Henry is enjoying himself far too much on television right now. And if you had the choice of traveling the world and making fun of Jamie Carragher and Micah Richards and talk soccer, and you don't have to deal with the headaches of the day-to-day and player assembly and all those kinds of things, I think that Thierry Henry is pretty happy right now. Marcelo Gallardo is another one that has jumped out to Alex. Player association aside with Atlanta United too. But with Gallardo, and then you get the perception of, oh, his son is, and I'm not saying that there's any truth to it. I'm just saying that the perception is there. Oh, he's coming and he's going to bring, and his kid's going to, you get those conversations. So Gallardo, don't know. But we've mentioned Gio Savarese forever. Literally 8 years of Gio. But like I said, you got a name, bring it to the table, tell me why. Now let's be thoughtful about it. And Alex and Rich Ransom making a conversation piece about an individual who's already employed. And I'm not even going to see, and it's stuff like that that just has no basis in any kind of reality whatsoever. Those are the kind of things that are dangerous. I'm going to leave that one in the Twitch pitch, but I'm just going to say this. No. He doesn't fit stylistically. He doesn't fit in a bunch of different ways when it comes to what Atlanta United wants to do. And I think that I think that there will be a day where he will want to go to Europe. I think he thinks his next step is Europe or a national team someplace. But that individual, by that member of the media to Atlanta, no. Under no circumstance. Well, and to Dell's point, shocked other MLS managers haven't been fired yet. And I think that you have that level of staring contest that goes on. Do we make the decision, or do we fire him? What does that say about us? Those kinds of things. What do we say? What do we say about those kinds of things? You look at the hot seat, and I know that we discuss what's going on in New England. I don't know. I'm still somewhat shocked myself. Frank Klopas, I think, in Chicago was an economical in-house choice. So I think that Chicago is fine with it. They're okay. They're fine. They're okay. They're okay. And then New England, Caleb Porter, 3-10-1. You've scored 11 goals in 14 matches. You've given up 27. But yeah, remember Kurt Adolfo wanted to get around with the baloney. He wanted to sort through the baloney, and he just wanted to win. How's that baloney taste? That baloney sandwich, or the sandwich without the baloney? That's not a good sandwich right now in New England. In the West, Nico Estevez in Dallas, Luchi Gonzalez in San Jose, and Peter Vermes in Kansas City. There's going to have to be a day where Peter Vermes has the conversation with Peter Vermes. He's at the halfway point of the season now, almost. 2-9-5. 9 points out of a playoff spot. That's going to be a discussion. I think you're going to have more discussions in the Western Conference than you would in the East. Well, and Will's not sure how the fan base would like Gio being pragmatic more than a free-flowing attack, but love Gio as a coach. But once again, that's just the evidence that we have of him in Portland. I mean, when he was with the Cosmos, they weren't pragmatic. I think Gio adjusts to the room. I think they're just too big. I think they're too big. I think it's Gio adjusts to the room and the talent that he has on hand. I don't think that he's I don't think that he's locked into one way. I'm sure that, Dell says he likes Gio. Would Garth have a good relationship with him, with him and Cascadia? Look, Dell, let's think of it this way. When you have, who would be the Battery's biggest rival in your mind? That coach, if that individual was available, you're going to put all of your front office ideas and thoughts and behaviors, you're going to put that off to the side and recognize a good coach as being a good coach. You're not going to sit there and say, well, I don't trust you because of when Seattle played Portland. I think that you would have a mutual respect for the individual. It'd be like, man, we went through some wars, didn't we? Now we're in this different place of our lives. Let's go ahead and unite what we've done and take the lessons that we learned in the Pacific Northwest, and we can apply them down here in the Southeast and grow the game and get Atlanta United where we both want it to be. Yeah, you can put that rivalry stuff to the side and have mutual admiration for one another and sit there and go, yeah, man, let's get together and let's go all Wonder Twins and we'll sit there and set this league on fire. I think that you would have a respect. You'd have a mutual respect for each other. So that's what I would be looking at in a situation like that. Absolutely, make it so. I mean, yeah, you put your rivalries to the side. Yeah. So Dell brings up Neil Collins from Tampa Bay. So you may not like, and it's almost like having that one player on your roster that the one player in the league that you hate. Sean Avery, Tim Hunter, Ty Domi. If you're a hockey guy, the enforcer for the team, Darren McCarty, Patrick Waugh, you name it. You think of your biggest rival in your idea of rivalries, manager, player, whatever, and then when he's on your team, you're like, yeah. I think that kind of a thing is what you'd be staring at. It's just, I think there's such a thing as healthy respect, and you respect someone for what they did against you at the time. And then you're like, yeah, okay, that was then, this is now. Let's go ahead and lock it down and show everybody what's going on. So, no, Uncle, there's nothing wrong with dreaming big, but to fill a space, let's be realistic. Emilio, I don't think he can. That's just me. I don't think Curtin can be flexible. Tafka, Gajardo is the best realistic choice. Pochettino would be a stretch, and Klopp would be crazy, never going to happen. Yeah, but I need clicks, absolutely. All right. 4-card wants Xavi. And Tom is like, Rob, till this season, Pep. Pep is going to be the head coach at NYCFC. He is going to be the coach at NYCFC. Absolutely, he is. And Abby with a question. For some strange reason. And this is another thing. I don't know why it is, and this is still happening to me. Abby's phone is acting up and not letting her post on Twitch, which is weird. And she wants to know, why does the coach have to be a he? It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. If the best coach thought of throughout the interview process ends up being the best coach thought of in the process, it doesn't have to be just a he. Trust me, that I would hope that these days we are open-minded when it comes to these kinds of things. I mean, remember, Jill Ellis was considered for the San Diego position. By the way, speaking of San Diego, looks like they're going to sign Chucky Lozano from PSV. Lozano will stay at PSV through the end of this season and then turn around and come in and be a part of San Diego. $5 to $7 million a year is what the salary range is looking at. So Chucky Lozano is going to be the first DP in San Diego for their club as they unveil themselves in 2025. So saw that happen yesterday. News out of Red Bulls this morning: Emil Forsberg has been selected for the Sweden national team for upcoming friendlies. No word about him for the Euros yet. And this is going to be, like I said, this is going to be a very interesting window for a lot of teams because of the juggling that coaches are going to have to do with their rosters. With everyone that is there. And you end up with all of the absences that are there. I think that it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how teams are going to have to use their second teams and their depth on their first teams to make things happen for the next, through the Olympics, next 6 weeks. I mean, for Atlanta United specifically, it's going to be probably a lot of Nick Firmino, Luke Brennan, making sure that everybody's healthy. Dax, you're going to see Ronald Hernandez with Luis Abram headed to Copa America at points. Then it'll be Efren Morales at the back, which should be fine. You'll have some stability with Brooks, with Brad, with Josh and Net, whatever direction they feel like they want to go there, and Tristan Muyumba. But it will be interesting. Daniel Rios, Daniel, Shonday, Jamal, Saba will be at Euros. So you'll have Luke Brennan, you'll have Nick Firmino. It will be interesting to see how, and not just for Atlanta, but that was just off the top of my head for Atlanta United, how things are going to integrate for clubs that are going to be losing players for the upcoming summer window, regardless of where they're going to be. For the international window, remember, Luis Abram is representing Peru. Thiago with the Argentina U23s. He's probably going to captain them in the Olympics. Noah Cobb is gone for the U19s. Jay Fortune gone for Trinidad and Tobago. Saba for Georgia. Bart for Poland. Caleb Wiley for the Olympics. You look at other teams. Colorado's losing Cole Bassett. Columbus is losing 3 players for the USA, 2 for the U23s, 1 for the U19s. Aiden Morris, Patrick Schulte, Taha Habrun. DC United's losing 2 for the U19s and 2 for Finland. Houston's losing Karaskia, Brooklyn Reigns, and Javier Valdez. LAFC is losing Buanga, Chanot, Giroux, Oliveira, and Timothy Tillman. Inter Miami, Messi and Friends is losing Kramoski for the U23s. Messi, Rojas, Ruiz. Minnesota United, get this. Minnesota United, get this. Arriaga, Braun, Harvey, Lud, Oluwasei, Pukki, Rosales, St. Clair, Valentin. Arriaga for Honduras, Braun for Costa Rica, Harvey for Panama, Lud for Finland, Oluwasei for Canada, Pukki for Finland, Rosales for Honduras, St. Clair for Canada, Zarek Valentin for Puerto Rico. 9 players from Minnesota United gone in the international window at one time or another. 3 of them for Canada. Crazy. 4 for Nashville. Godoy, Shackmore, Schaffelberg, and Walker Zimmerman. 3 for the Revs. 4 for the Red Bulls. 3 for NYC. 8 for Orlando City. Araujo, Bracalo, Cartagena, Galese, Loyola for the U20s for Chile, Duncan McGuire, Abdi Salim, Facundo Torres. The Union are losing 8 at various points. Barbo, Berdesio, Gazdag, Harriel, Lowe, Jose Martinez, Jack McGlynn, and David Vasquez. Portland's losing 3. RSL is losing 2. 2 for the U19s. Earthquakes are losing 7 when they can't afford to. Acapo, Baldissimo, Buda, Gruezo, Medina, Sakiris for the U19s, and Emi Ochoa for the U20s. Seattle's losing 2, including Nuhu. Toronto's losing 5. Etienne, Davy Flores, Sean Johnson, Larea, who just fell down again, and Jonathan Osorio, and Fafa Pico and Andres Cubas for Vancouver. So teams are losing a lot. Toronto, San Jose, who can't afford to, Philly, Orlando City, key players for Red Bulls and such, Minnesota United, Inter Miami, LAFC. So everybody's losing somebody. Everybody's losing somebody. How do you navigate that? That's the big question. Big question is, do we feel hell-bent on staying within one style of play that has to be free-flowing attack? Well, what do you want? What kind of a style would you want, Will? What kind of a style would you want? I know, because there are folks that want to sit there and say, well, I just want to win games. Okay. Well, what do you want? You had folks who you had Tata's style. And then Frank came in, and if it wasn't for one player not stepping out, you would have been in back-to-back MLS Cups. You would have hosted back-to-back MLS Cups. Then when things weren't going well and Frank went defensive and you were winning, people were mad that you weren't winning by the same way that you were winning with Tata. And then hindsight, we'll put that to the side. And then with Gonzalo, you had an approach that was predicated on pressure, and it was taking it literally. You went from Tata to Frank, then Frank to Heinze, who had the same kind of philosophy, and then from Heinze to Gonzo. It's the same thing, just a little different. Will my thought is that once, and this was what I was getting into in the first hour, where if you whiplash yourself, then do you have the personnel where you wouldn't have to be completely and totally overhauling your roster? And then you wouldn't necessarily be winning at the clip that you're wanting in that interim time. And then you're slowing down your progress, if that makes any sense. So what you had, it was a style and a style that added to it and a style that added to it and a style that added to it. If you go, and it's not really free flowing. I mean, if you think about it, if it's you want free flowing, it'd be like what LAFC used to be. It ain't that now. It's not as free flowing at times as you might think. There are times where Atlanta United sits on the ball and they invite pressure and they try to draw teams out. So it's not as free flowing as you may think 100% of the time. But what kind of style would you want? That would be my question. That would be my question. Prefer to win with style and goals. But I want the Al Davis just win baby. So then let me ask you this. Were you happy when Frank went more defensive and you had that run of matches where you won, but you only won 1-0? And this comes into a philosophical question as well. And this is for everybody, were you happy stylistically with what Tata wanted to do? And it wasn't as free-flowing as you might think either. Yes, you had the talent, but it was built on pressure and transition. Were you happy with what Tata did? Question mark ends the sentence. Were you happy with what Frank did at the beginning, building off of Tata Martino, and were you accepting of when Frank went more defensive oriented and won that string of games? Were you happy when that happened? Were you accepting when that happened? Because if you say that you just win baby and you want to win 1-0, then there are some folks who may not necessarily be as patient as you when it comes to being a supporter, because they want to see that free-flowing 3-1, 4-2, you score 3, we score 4 kind of a thing. Are you, Will, wanting to dial it back? Would you be, if it was just defensively oriented soccer, where you were pragmatic, and I'll use that not in the sense of a positive, would you, and anyone else out there, be okay with a very defensive style of soccer where you bunker and counter? And would you have been accepting of that at an earlier time frame in this club's existence, and you as a supporter? And this is a question for the collective. Would you be that happy? So that would be my question. It looks like it's free flowing attack, but it is there is something in mind. And there are times when you have the build up. It's not as hell bent for leather as, like I said, the LAFC of old. what you see when Messi and friends are healthy with their front line, because their back line is hideous. That front 5 or 6, and trying to hang on defensively. Will says, I'll admit less so at times. I'd prefer 3-1 wins over 1-0. There were times where I felt the roster we could do more, but other times we needed to. Dell about Thierry Henry. Thinks he loves his new gig. Probably misses being on the field per se. It might be a per se, but hey, you get to have fun. Twos look like they can use a manager. They're fine. Emilio, twos are fine. Steve Cook and that staff, Jose Silva and that group, they are doing as best they can, because I mean, you want to talk about a gig that is one of the most mentally challenging gigs out there. It's at times it's to be a second team manager, because the second team manager may not necessarily know what his 18 is going to look like until the day before a match. And for Steve Cook, Jose Silva, and Ricky Davey and that group to piece together what they do on a weekly basis and have some stability, that they get a tip of the hat from me every single day of the week. It is one of the most challenging gigs you could ever have, and I think that it readies you for anything else that could come down your way. It absolutely could. But the twos are fine. So better stay. No, I think you're fine with Ben Pierman. No, he's not for sale. Yeah, Will is at this point, he just wants to win at any cost. Yes, I think, Alex, you are correct that Thierry did. I think he did leave during the pandemic, not being able to travel, being away from his family, being in Canada, not being able to go anywhere. Yeah, I think that's right. Tom most seemingly would rather us lose being fast and exciting than win more slowly. Emilio, as long as it's not Red Bull or Union, fans just want to win. We don't want 60% possession, score 2 or 3 goals. It's fine. But were you, and like I said, going all the way back to the beginning, were you happy or were you less happy when it was more defensive minded? You know, if you have a coach who is you have a coach who's defensive minded or becomes more pragmatic in a defensive sense, and you're winning 1-0, were you happy then? And when you were drawing or you were losing by 1 goal, were you less happy than when you were losing 4-3? And like I said, this is all the dynamic that's in play here. Because if you say, "Yeah, I want you to be wide open," and then you're not as successful, and then you dial it back, and it's pragmatic, defensive, counter, bunker, and counter, and then you're winning, but it's not as exciting. And then when it turns to not winning and being not exciting, then you want to go back to the good old days of when everything was wide open. Have we circled back to the idea, even though right now in this current context, it's more about the idea of being clinical and finishing your opportunities? But you're not wide open. You're offensive minded, but you are very, very tactically aware of yourself defensively. I mean, look at the miles that the guys are putting in, but you're still having the chances. You just didn't finish them in this past administration. Where are you right now on your scale? Other than just win. That's another part of this. Where are you on your scale of, yeah, I want to win, but then if you're bored out of your mind and you're winning, don't you want to be more wide open? because that's what certain numbers of the fan base were like. You win a title, you're doing well offensively. You bring in Frank. Frank is stylistically from Tata, but twisted a little bit and tweaked. Then goes more pragmatic. He gets the results that aren't as exciting. Gets to a semifinal, really should have been a final. And then pandemic and hindsight and Frank and all that, like I said, put that over there. So where are you right now on the scale other than just win? Would you sit and tolerate bunker and counter 1-0 and be bored out of your mind in a different sense than it would be about a team that is athletic, can pressure, create turnovers, and try and be clinical to finish their chances? Would you rather have a coach that has players that are athletic and continue to pressure and do their thing? And like I said in this last with Gonzalo Pineda, what's the best thing about what do you do if you've got a 1-goal lead? You try and chase after a 2-goal lead. So that way you're not dialing it back and you're on your heels and you're waiting for something to happen. You're the one who's the aggressor the entire time, pushing the opponent to be on their heels. So let's see how Rob does with this group. But this next 6 weeks is going to be a challenge with all the absences. If Gigi wants to go, I'd rather he be sold. It seems like a reset moment. I'd rather have someone bought into what we're building. Like I said, with Gigi, we don't know yet. We know it's being posted out there by Tier 1 sources. And so that's where I am staring at things right now. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Tier 1 sourcing, and although I have no empirical evidence to support this, dating back to last year, and I mean, like I said, if Thiago has a great Olympics, he's getting looked at too. But there's also the dynamic of just because you don't hear something. And like I said, I always talk about double negatives and how it drives my mother crazy. Just because you don't hear something doesn't mean anything isn't happening. So that was 4 negatives in one sentence. Just because you aren't hearing about transfer news doesn't mean that folks aren't kicking the tires. And if Thiago balls out at the Olympics, the noise will get loud all over again, but it does not mean that there isn't noise now that we're not hearing about. Because once again, Europe is over. Europe's season's over. Folks are trying to figure out where their budgets are and what they can do and what they can't. So you could be in a summer window if you have players who are desirable, and you have 2, if not more, in Caleb. Gigi being courted by Liga MX. Thiago courted if he balls out, and I imagine he's being stared at by other folks. We bring in, whenever his signal can behave, we'll bring in Jarrett for the final half hour this morning. But you could have a situation in a summer window where Gigi could be heading to Liga MX, Thiago could be heading to Europe. So that's what we're staring at. Oh, and Forecard, if it's Tier 1, why are we doubting the status? It's multiple Tier 1 sources. I'm just saying what's out there. If it's Tier 1s, it's Tier 1s. Until, and I guess I'm looking at it like Alec Baldwin and Glenn Ross. Get them to sign on the line, which is dotted. All this stuff right now is talk. Like I said, I mentioned the Cesar Luis Merlo discussion yesterday afternoon involving Gigi. 10 million plus terms and all that kind of stuff. It looks like personal terms have been agreed to, and it also looks like June of 28 would be the end of the contract that we're staring at. That's the information that we're getting from Tier 1 sourcing. But until the full screen is up, we get a here we go from Fabrizio Romano. Right now, all it is talk. Because I've heard 10, I've heard 12, I've heard 13 million. And if you're Atlanta United and you're in that situation like that, where you get the chance to possibly triple your initial investment, you do right by the player. You continue to play in the global marketplace and be someone who will continue to have good vibes thrust upon you by both player and agent. You tip your hat and you say thanks, and you head on. And then you try and figure out the next piece that you can bring in, either from Europe or Central or South America, or a distressed asset from a European marketplace, which is where you seem to be making your hay these days. But we'll see where it all goes. Let's see. Yeah, and and Alex, Pineda's contract up at the end of the year. Sure, they were compiling their list. Yes, that is possibly probably true. And Will circling back. Pragmatism would have led us to not blowing leads and giving up easy goals. The Bradleys. Dell, I think Michael is going to be an assistant for Jesse Marsh. And I think that Bob would want too much control. And I don't think that would fly in any situation, even if it's Atlanta. I think that Bob Bradley would want entirely too much control. He wants to be Bill Parcells. He wants to be both coach and GM. And I don't think that's going to happen in any situation. It would have to be outside of the purview of this country. And like I said, and that's what he said. Forkard and Dell discussing Bruce. The word I used was radioactive, and I'm glad that you guys have said radioactive as well. Tom, enjoy your staff meeting. We'll be back. We'll be here till 11 or so. We'll keep going. Yes, Matthew Barnaby. Absolutely correct, Derek. Matthew Barnaby. Guys like that. Bob Probert. Absolutely. Those kinds of guys. Don't know, Dell. I would have said Emma Hayes, but she's kind of occupied at the moment. Alex, while we're all frustrated and nervous about the state of our club, I do want to say that I love you all and appreciate this community. And Alex hits it square on the head. And that is what we have tried to be a part of in building here in our 8th season, which to me is amazing. To be a part of the conversation, to talk about the game, talk about it as fans, talk about it smartly, grow the game, grow it as best we can, as many different ways as possible. And to bring others along with us and be civil about it and be smart and journalistic and help understand the context of all of this. Alex hits it square on the head. And like I said, it's very humbling for me when I'm out in the community. Like I said, when I was out at the supporters lot Sunday, shows you how the days go. To see folks from the supporters groups, to see some plus ones, to see folks, put their hand in the air, wave up and say hi. Tom comes by, wants to shake hands, seeing folks in the concourse when I'm wandering around before a match. It's very humbling when you guys stop and say hi. And I don't get to, literally, I'm a whirlwind and I get to sit there and like wave my hand in the air and go, hi, great to see you, that kind of a thing. But it's still very humbling when that happens. Let's see. Abby's banning Tampa Bay Rowdies, folks. So I guess no Rodney Marsh as a head coach. Let's see. Abby, I like what Pineda was trying to do many times. I think it was the players not finishing and stop waiting for the perfect shot. I think that there were absolutely times where you could have been less selfless. You could have been more selfish. How about that? Just go ahead and shoot. You got it. Take it. Don't have to be so nice sometimes. Yes, Abby, I'd love to know what the I'd love to know what the percentages are. Tafka, not a fan of 60% possession where it's just passing above the midfield for 5 minutes at a time. What you're doing, Tafka, is you're tiring the other guy out. You're keeping an eye on things, but you're tiring that other guy out. You're forcing them to chase. Like, you do something like that against Messi and friends, possess the ball, let them chase you. Last 15 minutes of a half, last 15 minutes of a match, that's when you can take advantage of those kinds of situations. Yeah, and Abby mentioning the twos about being a difficult situation. Will, loving the FDB Masterclass and Open Cup. Tofka says press and transition, best viewing experience, and it's not a sacrifice of defense. Let's see. Abby's less happy when more defensive-minded. It's boring defense is strong for the most part. And that was addressed in the offseason. That was absolutely addressed in the offseason. You brought in Derek Williams, maturing Noah Cobb, maturing Efren Morales. You brought in Steon Gregerson. A healthy Steon Gregerson and a healthy Derek Williams, you've seen the results. Still no update, by the way, on Gregerson and the possible, they think it was a hamstring. And I think if you look at the third goal, that might have been a contributing factor to it, because Gregerson trying to move to his left to defend before the Abada scores the third goal, I think it was impacting him then. And then he goes down, and then he had to be removed for Noah for the rest of that match. And Four Card wants to score and win. Alex is talking about having bunker and counter in the arsenal. Will, ideal world, love to pressure and score, tire him, no in to go for the jugular. Just felt like with Pineda, it was possession without intent. There was intent, Will, but when you're not clinical, there's no fruit of the labor when you're not clinical. There was intent there. But, when you're not finishing your opportunities and you end up with a 0 on the board, at the end of the day, you look at it and you go, man, I wish we could have, put the ball in the back of the net. You had those opportunities. I mean, seriously, where's that sheet of paper from yesterday? I think but 5 chances in the first quarter of the match. None of them go to the back of the net. Bringing in Jarrett for the final 25 minutes until he turns into a real world pumpkin. So did everything get settled in the real world, sir? Are you okay?
I hope so.
But no, we've been obviously discussing what Garth said yesterday, and with Rob on the clock. And I have asked folks if they want to bring names to the table, obviously understanding that Rob is auditioning as well, that there be common sense attached. Tell me why. Don't just throw a name out there. And one of the names that initially hit the ground running this morning was Gio. And like I said, it's a name that we've had ever since before day one was Gio Savarese.
Yeah, it's a name we were looking at back in 2016, 2017.
Yep.
Well, not 2017, but 2016.
Yep.
Because you were in that era where your Cosmos kind of ceased to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a bit more pragmatic. I think Gio is a bit more hard nosed, but he has a track record of success. He took Portland to 2 MLS Cup finals, one of them in this building in Atlanta. Yep. I think Gio's an easy name there. You'd get somebody who I think is willing to stay somewhere for a while, because I think one of the fears is that if you go get a big manager, that you're going to end up with them for 2 years, 3 years, and they're gone. And I get it. It is the thing that around the world, it's not super common to get a manager to stay for more than 3 or 4 years. They'll go take on a new challenge. Tata was that way. I know the thing is still to be mad about Tata leaving Atlanta.
Right.
But if you go look at his record, he never stayed anywhere for long.
Yeah.
He would always move around. He'd come, conquer lands, and then leave. And a lot of managers are going to be that way. Yeah, we'll just have to see what names get popped out. Sounds like Rob's going to get a shake at it.
Yeah.
It is going to be tough for him though. So I look forward to seeing how everyone deals with the fact that when you are back on the field, it's going to be without a number of your better players.
Yeah, I went
Saba,
through that. Yeah.
Saba be gone.
Well, and I mean, here's the rundown: Abram, Almada, Noah,
Mhm.
Jay, Saba, Bart, and Caleb at various times.
Yeah. You have to figure it out, and it might mean you don't know. Hopefully Stian was a matter of, hey, I felt my hamstring tighten up, so I went down.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a full blown out hamstring. Hopefully it was I just felt it get tight.
Yeah.
And I needed to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're looking at like Derek and Ephra on the
Mm-hmm.
back line.
Yep.
Which does limit you because now you're in a situation where you really can't go out there and run consistently a 3-back set.
Right.
If that's what you want to do, because right now you're looking at having just 3 center backs because of the guys that are going to be missing.
Right.
So it's a little bit trickier, but you're leaning on Dax a lot. I also don't forget Jaden Hibbert is going to be with Jaden Hibbert's going to be with Jamaica as well.
Yeah.
The twos goalkeeper got called in, not to like the youth national team. Jamaica called him in.
Yeah. Well, you will have
Jamaica.
Yeah, you will have John Berner and Quentin Westberg to be there for the twos. So I think you'll be fine between the sticks when it comes to the twos and MLS Next Pro during this opportunity. But you're going to see Luke Brennan on the I-75 shuttle. You're going to see Nick Firmino on the I-70. You're going to see Nick Firmino on the I-75 shuttle. It's Shonday, Daniel, Luke, Jamal, Nick, Tristan, Dax, Ephra, Ronald, Derek, Brooks, Brad, Josh. I mean, the 11 is there, but it's where you fill in the pieces.
The thing is, now you're about to learn some stuff, whether you're ready to or not. You're about to learn some stuff about some of these guys.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure everybody's done their postmortems with Gonzalo Pineda leaving. Really good dude. The results aren't there, and it's a results-based business. For me, that's what it came down to. Is this is a business where you have to win, and they were not winning. The easiest thing to do there is change the voice, change the manager.
Yep.
Doesn't have to mean that you think they're terrible at their job and that everything sucks. It can be hey, it's not working. I would not be surprised if we can talk about it Thursday with Nico. I wouldn't be surprised if Gonzalo takes a little bit of time, maybe pops back up to Seattle, joins back up with Schmetzer on that staff, goes with the familiarity that he has up there, and gets back to work. But I know the sense I get is that the Seattle people would more than willingly take it back.
Yeah.
4 cards still hasn't gotten his ice cream from me. So I wasn't thinking about that at the game against Charlotte, mostly because I got there right at start time. Also, when I went to get ice cream, the ice cream machine exploded and tried to attack the person who was using it before me. So it was very hostile ice cream. It was a very weird time because of all the water main breaks. Again, we discussed this. We discussed this in the Discord that like it's kind of has like all the water main breaks is kind of like the pivotal third act of Batman Begins, where Liam Neeson is just blowing out the water mains with Jonathan Crane's fear toxin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like so you're moved on, you've changed the voice. It's got check time for a lot of the players though, because however you feel about the tactical setup, however you feel about subs, however you feel about that manager that's gone now, the guys weren't producing in front of net. Like you should have been. You by many accounts should have been up 2-0 at least on Charlotte inside of 20 minutes of that game. You could have damn near killed off Charlotte in that game
Yeah,
Saturday, and you
absolutely.
didn't. Saba skies a shot. Saba picks the ball off, 1v1 with the keeper, doesn't even make him make a save, misses wide from an angle. You had opportunities and you did not do it.
Nope.
And it's been a consistent problem this year that they get in opportunities and they're not finishing.
Yeah.
If whether or not, I don't know if that changes with the new manager, because some of that is a matter of guys not finishing chances. The big difference when Miami and everything else is that in Miami, you actually finished low percentage chances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, the third one's a great finish. And it's a great redirect.
Yep.
It's you're going to learn some stuff about some guys.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a come down on everybody sucks thing. This is I just mean you're going to learn some stuff about some of these guys, because they're going to have to go out there and they're going to have to grind some stuff out.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's not a team that traditionally has been built to grind things out. They've been a high flying team. They've been expected to go out there and win shootouts. You're going to have to grind some stuff out. You're going to have to show some balls, and it's going to be tricky, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be a challenge. But you're in this situation you're in partially, not entirely, partially because you haven't been able to finish in front of that. You're going to get those chances. You have to take advantage of them, and that's something that the players will have to take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be, I think this is going to be a lesson for the players, where they get to look in the mirror and realize that it was their inability to put the ball in the back of the net that got a good man fired. And what are you going to do about it now? How are you going to make things better with the club that you're a part of? Now, how do you move forward?
And I think that's part of it. I'm sure there's always more depth to these things, but yeah, you're not scoring enough. And you can't fire players. Like, you can't just like go through there and just fire players and kick them out of the clubhouse. But now they've got to go out there and make something happen. Because as I have reiterated many times, and I'll reiterate it now, no one's going to feel sorry for you around this league. No one's going to feel bad for you because your manager got fired. You were supposed to be competing. Really, I think a lot of people expect you to be top 3 in the East.
Yep.
And right now you're in 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Now, nothing is over. I went over this with people yesterday. Nothing is over. This connection that we have of it's bad and everything is over. Those are two separate entities, because it's MLS, because it's chaotic. Because there's so many dumb variables in this league, man.
I mean, legitimately, if you look at it, you are a win out of being in the playoffs. I mean, literally, you're 3 points. You have a better goal difference than Nashville. Literally, you win one, you're in 9th. You're not in 13th anymore. That's where the Eastern Conference is right now with its 3 groups. You've got the Miami-Cincinnati group. Then you've got the group in the 20s, which takes you from 3 through 7. And then the getting into the playoffs group, which is everybody else outside of New England from 8 through 14, separated by 5 points right now. So it's 3 distinct groups.
Yeah, and you have to go win games, and that's all you can focus on. You can look at the rest of the standings all you want. There's a lot of bodies between where you want to be and where you are.
Yeah.
You have to go win games. It's the bottom line of it, man. I mean, we can talk about, the finishing let them down. There might have been bad luck here or there, questionable calls, all that. The bottom line is you lost 5 straight home games. You can't do that. You can't.
Nope.
Like, the philosophy is you win your home games, you tie your road games, and you're going to be in immaculate shape coming to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you can't lose 5 straight home games. Doesn't matter if it's by hook or crook, you can't. You have to find a way. You have to gut out ways. This is something that I thought we've seen more of with the twos recently, even to their loss and against Crown Legacy, which I hate to use the word that like a loss is undeserved, but I felt like that one was like, talking to one of the comms people who covers the twos at the game Sunday, that he said, even in the 88th minute, he said, it never felt like they were going to lose that game.
No.
And Jaden Hibbert was on one, and you were able to get forward. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things why you think things did or didn't work, but your bottom line is you lost 5 straight. You're going to have to grind out some results now. It's going to be ugly. It's not going to be fun at times. You got to make stuff happen, and you can only worry about yourself. You can't worry about the 12 teams ahead of you. You can't worry about who's behind you. You have to worry about the games in front of you. You have to worry about yourself in that moment. You have to worry about your teammates in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to be on these guys, and it's going to be on Rob Valentino and this makeshift staff to make sure that everybody's on the right page, to make sure everybody's locked in, and the guys that are here go do the job. And as Nick has talked about before, if you don't want to do the job, I will find someone who does.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key in all of this. And this is, as Garth said, we are all on, we are all under review for the second half of the season. And that is coaches, that is staff, that is players, that is everybody. And while that does sound like a cliche, it's true, because with the head coach fired and the players taking personal responsibility for what they didn't do, it is now an opportunity for them to do what they didn't do and improve their lot here in the second half of the season. And now, like I said, everyone is now on guard. And Garth said as much. So we'll see where the players we'll see what the players do to respond in all of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you've seen, I think if you want to start getting into it, yeah, I mean, you've seen Tristan drop off from what he showed you last year. And some of that, man, that partnership he had with Mateus Osetiu looked really good last year.
Yeah.
He hasn't shown you that same guy this year. Now, with some of that partnership with a player like Mateus, and they fit together well, possibly.
Yeah.
Shande Silva, I know everybody's been excited about getting him back starting. Shande hasn't done up until Sunday, and he worked his ass off Sunday. That Shande needed that game more than anybody, I thought.
Yep.
Shande hasn't been what you've needed him to be this year. He showed you something Sunday. That was awesome. But you needed that. You need guys to step up and be more than what they have been. And now's that chance to do it. Because you again, no one's going to feel sorry for them. They got to go out there and make it happen. And, whether that's Jamal up top fighting it out, Daniel up top fighting it out, Nick Firmino playing the 10 a little bit differently. I honestly hate that Jay's with Trinidad right now, because I thought he was really good Sunday.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to have the question about Dax's legs, about how long Dax's legs can hold up. I don't know. Maybe you bring Javier Armas up on a short term if you need him from the midfield.
And that could very well be something that we look at when it comes to cross-referencing the Atlanta United 2 schedule. And I mean, the 2s, they've got 3 weeks before their next match.
It's the second time they've done that this year. Whoever's making the schedules for MLS Next Pro is just sitting there on Peyote and making things up as they go along. I swear to God, they are. They've been moving games around left and right. This is the second time that the 2s will have more than 2 weeks off between games. It's asinine schedule making. It's pathetic.
But what that does, to your point about a Javier Armas and such, for that schedule, I think the 26th, I think, is the next match for the 2s. For the Houston, DC, and St. Louis matches, you have the opportunity to bring up some players from the 2s on short terms, like Luke and Nick and Javi. And,
Well, Luke needs to be up here anyway, because no one else is latching on. If you're going to run a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, you need to have Luke up here anyway, because Shande's been up and down. Power's still banged up, and Edwin Mosquera has regressed from what he was last year. Even early in the season, I thought Edwin had those flashes where you're like, okay, this guy I can play out there for 20, 25 minutes. He hasn't, he hasn't been that guy this year. I think you need to look really hard at some of these young kids and say, hey, we're going to get these young kids a chance, because if guys are not going to do the job, find someone who will. And if that means it's a 19-year-old kid, then it's a 19-year-old kid. I'm not going to discriminate age when it comes to I need someone to go out there and do the damn job.
No, you look at Noah Cobb. That should be your answer right there. If he's doing the job, doesn't matter what age he is. He's doing the job.
Noah and Efra stepped in and did the job just fine.
Yep.
The only time Noah got pushed around was against Christian Benteke, and he really didn't get the support he needed from the defensive midfield.
Mm-hmm. Got a different piece of breaking news here. Hang on just a second. And it's from outside of this country. And so I got to grab the breaking news sounder. And Abby's asking about Bart. I think Bart's pretty much done with Atlanta United until the Euros. So Bart will not be a part of everything going on until after the Euros are completed. Yeah. And it's so Premier League news. Here we go. Matt Watt over at the Times. Manchester City have launched an unprecedented legal action against the Premier League in a move that has sparked civil war in English football's top flight. That's his opening paragraph.
Good.
The dispute, which has become a battle between the most powerful clubs in the country, settled after a 2-week private arbitration hearing starting on Monday. Next week's hearing, which has provoked bitter divisions between clubs, City will attempt to end the league's associated party transaction rules, which they claim are unlawful, and seek damages from the Premier League. Introduced in December 2021 in the wake of the Saudi-led takeover of Newcastle, rules are designed to maintain the competitiveness of the Premier League by preventing clubs from inflating commercial deals with companies linked to their owners. The rules dictate that such transactions have to be independently assessed to be of fair market value. A 165-page legal document, City argues they are the victims of discrimination, in quotation marks, describing rules they say have been approved by their rivals to stifle their success on the pitch as a tyranny of the majority, end quote. If City are successful in their claim, and some rival clubs fear they will be, it could enable the richest clubs to value their sponsorship deals without independent assessment for the league, vastly boosting the amount of money they can raise and therefore giving them far greater sums to spend on the players. The league's other 19 clubs have been invited to participate in the legal action, and the Times understands between 10 and 12 have stepped forward, providing either witness statements or a letter detailing evidence in support of the Premier League's defense against the claim. Those who've provided witness statements may be called by the tribunal to give evidence at the hearing. Clubs fear City's claim could also be the key to the outcome of the hearing into their 115 alleged breaches between 2009 and 23, with the sponsorship deals funded by the companies linked to Abu Dhabi central to the accusations against them. So, Times says that City is suing the Premier League. If all else fails, sue them.
Okay, I mean, they're all going to be suing each other and pissing on each other for the next 2 years, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's where we're at now. Like the Prem is going to have to bring all their 100 and whatever many thousand charges to Manchester City. Now Manchester City is going to sue them about this. They're just going to pick up dirt clods and throw them at each other for the next 2 years.
Pretty much,
and everyone's going to tell us it's the greatest thing on earth. Okay.
Literally.
I got other things to do in my life.
Kids in the sandbox, and they're just kids in the sandbox, and they're just throwing salt at each other. That's where it is. So yeah, if all else fails, sue. I think that's where we are with Manchester City in the Premier League. So they're up on charges, and so we'll tell you what, we're going to sue you. So that's where we are with Manchester City. And Tom, this is what you can do when you have unlimited money. You break league rules. When the league calls you out, you file all sorts of other legal actions against them, tie everything up in the courts for years. Tafka, Man City proving why I'm justified in not watching the EPL. Thanks.
Got better things to do.
Yeah, but I think Bart is on international duty and international responsibilities until through the Euros. So it'll be a midfield of Dax, Javi. I mean, with Jay out and away, Javi Armas.
You're going to have to.
Yeah.
You're going to have to use a short-term agreement to bring him up. You're going to have another body because Dax can't do 3 games a week on his legs anymore. God bless him. He's an
Mhm.
absolute gem out there, but he's
Yep.
37.
Yep. So you've got to have you got to have the backup plan, and so I was discussing the idea of being a manager for a second team and a coaching staff for the second team is one of the most challenging jobs out there because you don't know what your lineup may be from time to time. Maybe you have 36 hours to figure out what your lineup is and still try to come up with results and continue to grow the players that you have there and continue to have them, chase their dreams as a professional in whatever element that is. But yeah, being a second team manager and a second team coaching staff is one of the most challenging things you could do, and a lot of folks embrace that challenge. And no, it'll be very interesting with the teams that have all the absences, like we talked about: L.A., Minnesota, Orlando, Atlanta. How you adjust to what's going forward when it looks like you have all of these gap times and all these competitions with all these folks that are out the door. And Tom, there's no way that they will ever have a salary cap.
They won't have a salary cap. Hell, we're trying to figure out how to jump around the one we got here.
Yes.
Take what you read right now about the Margaret Roy stuff with a grain of salt because we don't know the full story there.
Yeah.
And people will just say things on the internet because they can.
Mhm.
And people like to be habitual instigators, is what
Yes.
it is. But people are always finding a way to bend around salary caps, and England would do the same damn thing.
Yes, they would.
Manchester City would be doing a Miami times 100 if they could get away with it. Just depends, man.
Mm-hmm. So that's that definitely will be happening. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo: what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, all of the friendlies and things like that that's going on. We mentioned the Marco Royce stuff, but we also mentioned once again, remember the idea of NIL.
Discovery rights are still the dumbest damn thing this league does still. Of the many dumb things this league does, discovery rights is way the hell up there.
Dibs. I've got dibs. I've got dibs on Marco Royce. Well, fine. I got dibs on Franz Beckenbauer. Whatever. Allison, targeted by the league that we neither condone, promote, or endorse. Villa says,
I don't disagree with Tom. Like, not saying it can will happen, just that it would help. Yeah, it would.
It absolutely would.
It would absolutely help them. They won't do it, and then there's certain elements of EPL that just remind me of Major League Baseball, in the sense that they're so stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
And there is no concept of actually getting out of their ways. And anything that is different, even if it might make things better, well, that's not the way we've always done it. It's not the way we do it.
Yeah. We've never done it. We haven't done it that way, so we can't do it that way. You harumph it and you sit there and you say, we've never done that. So obviously that means you never will. Villa set to look to complete the £5 million deal to sign Ross Barkley from Luton. Three-letter paper says that Arsenal is going to let Eddie Nketiah go. Fulham prepared to offer around 30. Also interest from Crystal Palace, Wolves, and Everton. Arsenal also open to offers for Zinchenko, who's linked with Bayern Munich. Crescencio Somerville at Leeds emerged as a £30 million target for Liverpool. Sunderland determined not to sell Job Bellingham, with Spurs, Brentford, and Crystal Palace all interested. Manchester United, Liverpool monitoring Sporting Lisbon and Portugal centre back Gonçalo Ignacio, Fabrizio Romano. Real Madrid decided to exercise their option to sign Joselu on a permanent from Espanyol. Liverpool plotting to sign a new defensive midfielder, with Wataru Endo viewed as only a stopgap. Dortmund do not have first option to buy on loan defender Ian Maatsen. Chelsea's £35 million release clause open to any clubs interested. Four-letter paper. England's Jadon Sancho pushing for a permanent move back to Dortmund for Manchester United this summer. The other four-letter paper. Manchester United set to lose Amari Forson this summer after he turned down the club's final contract offer. Four-letter paper. We mentioned Chucky Lozano to San Diego. That's going to be a $5 to $7 million a year salary. He's going to stick with PSV through the end of the season and then turn, so he'll be ready for training camp for San Diego in February of 2025. AC Milan have lined up Paulo Fonseca to replace Stefano Pioli. Burnley have made contact with Alan Pardew. Good Lord. as they start their search for a permanent successor to Vincent Company. Thank God that's the 3-letter paper. As we always say with the 3 and the 4-letter paper, take the information at your own peril. What to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Once again, Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Gets you all of the true degenerate stuff that you can get. Nuestra Tele, CDO, For the Fans, Teise, Liga 1 Max Pro, all the BNs. You can watch Sudamericana and Libertadores and the LPF, where last night you could have seen Defensa y Justicia take on Independiente. 8 o'clock tonight, Libertadores on BN. Simulcast on BN and Espanol, Huachipato and Gremio. France and England in Euro 2025 qualifying, CBS Sports Network at 3. FS2 has a couple of friendlies. Slovenia, Armenia at noon. Say that 10 times fast. Portugal, Finland at 2:45. Canada and Mexico friendly at 7:30 on the women's side. USA and South Korea international women's friendlies at 8. Simulcast on True. Universo has the simulcast as well for USA and South Korea. Fox Soccer Plus, Switzerland and Estonia at 2:15. Max is simulcasting as well. So it is the full WBD experience for USA and South Korea. Argentina Liga Profesional has Barraca Central and Huracan at 2:30. Bonfield Newells at 7. Independiente Rivadavia and Union Santa Fe at 7. Peacock simulcasting USA, South Korea on the women's side as well. Jarrett, any other thoughts before we go?
No, not really. We got a lot of games coming up, international tournaments that'll be fun. Yeah, have fun with it. But watch them and enjoy yourself. There's a time people can so on the MLS all they want, but at least each season isn't a foregone conclusion as to which 2-3 teams will win the title. Yeah, I mean there is parity here. It's one of the things that I think made the Bundesliga so much fun this year. You got that change up.
You got somebody different for a change.
It was the Leicester year.
Yeah,
that was so much fun. Is you got a change up in all of it. It's one of the things that it's one of the reasons, like when I watch Scotland, that I'm half the time I'm keeping an eye on what's happening like 3 through 7 to see who makes the split.
Yeah,
because a lot of those teams are just bludgeoning each other, and when you just take the old firm out of it, it's really fun. And then one of them occasionally pops up and sticks a thorn in the old firm's paw, and it's even more fun. Look, we like parity in sports. There's something about this is you get into the economics of sports if you want to, and look at you want to get really deep into like marginal revenues of sports, and that you people like uncertainty. Sure, they love to see their team win, but you win 100% of the time, it actually is gonna kind of go downhill a bit.
Yep.
Like it's Carlton Globetrotters can win every time, but it's fun because of it's a unique entertainment experience. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But people like uncertainty. It's what makes it fun. Sure, you want to pick up your Xbox or PS5 controller and go bludgeon your rival like 45-0 in a game of FIFA. You do it. But in the real world, we love uncertainty.
Yep.
We love not knowing, because then that makes the elation of victory that much more fun.
Correct. Wow. Jarrett went philosophical this morning. So we'll be back at it again 9:05 tomorrow.
I'm just tired of England.
That too.
Just gestures to everything about the the pyramid of England. So mostly it's just me being tired of being told that it's like the greatest thing on earth just because they spend all of the money known to mankind. Yeah, great. You paid 45 million pounds for this player. Like, is he any good? It's questionable. Okay,
and then you paid
your
more,
money.
and you paid more for a player within the league because he's within the league. Therefore, he has the artificial value inflated to a number that doesn't make any sense.
Dude, I am so happy that first of all, I'm not happy that Matt O'Reilly is probably going to leave Celtic. He's been one of the player of the year in Scotland for my money. James Tavernier being a penalty merchant notwithstanding. But Matt O'Reilly is probably going to go to England.
Yeah.
I sincerely hope that Celtic holds out and goes to England. It's like, if you want him, he's $50 million. Like, don't think you can go to Scotland. Like, I want Scotland to stop being the discount shop for England.
Yeah.
Where like, you can go get a player for a couple $1 million who's worth way more than that. No. Start charging. Don't charge them less. Charge them more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charge English more.
It's an annoyance fee.
Make it hurt the entire time. I want this to be like getting caught, you know, being caught in a giant cylinder that spins quickly. Like it's going to hurt the entire time, England. That's what I want. Every league should be looking at like a Prem team wants our player. Well, the price of the brick just went up, man.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got the money to pay for it. Oh, I'm sorry. So, the universe is a little different than it was just a few minutes ago. Yeah. Putney, get Putney. I'm going to get David God blanking Putney because I won it. You need a punt returner. All right. Back in 22 hours, Tyler Pilgrim, hopefully Dylan Butler, the busiest man in the Northeast tomorrow. And we'll keep discussing what's going on here in Atlanta as we get you ready for a bit of a break for Atlanta United, but not for everybody. And then we got to look at international stuff too. So we'll keep an eye on it as we go. And it looks like on Friday morning, we're going to have both head coaches for both Decatur FC and Georgia Impact hanging out with us to break down their big Friday night matchup at Decatur High School in the WPSL. So for Jarrett, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us, and thanks for the great conversation this morning. Back at it again in less than 22 hours. Much Platiel, play it safe. We'll see you tomorrow.